So I recently did an experiment with this thing here, and I had hundreds of fungus gnats, and I mean a lot, right? It wasn't the occasional one here and there. It was like literally I would walk past this greenhouse and a puff of like gnat smoke would come off the soil. It was so frustrating. And at the time, I felt like I had tried everything, right? I changed the humidity with this thing, I opened the vents on the dome, I removed the dome, I replaced the plants several times actually. I changed the soil, I adjusted my watering, and nothing was really working. Turns out the reason in the end, well, that actually took me 3 rounds of replacing dead plants several times just to figure it all out. What a waste of money. So this product here is literally a mini greenhouse that I purchased, and it was part of an indoor food experiment where I was trying to go basil, coriander and lettuce at the time. Spoiler alert, this one didn't work so well. The greenhouse itself, this thing here, just kept on failing. And it wasn't just the plants that I noticed were failing, because I had fungus gnats multiplying the entire time over the 10-week period that I did the experiment. The first week when I used the greenhouse itself, I actually used it properly, like it was designed. I had the dome on the top, the air vents were closed, and literally within, I think, 24 or 48 hours, the plants were almost dead because there was no movement, too much humidity. So I had to replace them straight away. So then I used the dome but opened the air vents. That still didn't work. I ended up taking the dome off completely. I got some new plants in there. That was my 3rd round of plants, and the plants still weren't growing. They were still dying on me. And by that point, I was just so irritated because it shouldn't have been that complicated. I don't normally have fungus gnats, and I had no plants and lots of fungus gnats. It was just ridiculous. So I kept on blaming the soil for everything, right? And don't get me wrong, the soil in this thing definitely wasn't helping at the time. It was too dense and it did stay wet for a long time. So I did actually end up getting some of the soil out, loosening it up, adding vermiculite, a little bit of perlite, and that did improve things slightly, but the fungus gnats didn't go away. So that's when I finally just decided, right, I just need to start again with this thing, and I emptied the whole thing out and I looked over this mini greenhouse properly. Sometimes the way companies manufacture things, it just matters so much than you ever really think about. Some manufacturers do it really well, obviously, and some don't. And when it comes to getting the right pots for your plants, it all comes down to the way they're built, especially at the base with the drainage. And honestly, this is the part about plant care I actually think it's often overlooked when it comes to social media. I don't see many people talking about it. In fact, when it comes to drainage, did you know there's actually a manufacturing practice, and it looks like that? One hole for every, it's either 6 centimeters or 6 inches or something like that. It's one small hole for quite a big space, which I found actually really surprising. Now, technically on a terracotta pot, it's not so bad because the terracotta itself takes away moisture from the soil as well. So that does help when it comes specifically to terracotta. But if you kind of take that one hole is fine logic to any other pot, if you're buying a pot without holes and you want to put holes into that pot, then I promise you, you just won't have enough drainage points on your pot for your plants to be healthy, no matter what type of plant it is. And don't get me wrong, when I was having this experiment, I was trying to grow food, so I needed a soil mix that retained a fair amount of moisture. So on average, when it comes to any pot really, and this isn't a universal rule, this is like what I think when I look at pots, it's just what is in my head. I haven't read it anywhere, but I'm always looking for a decent amount of drainage space on the base. So you don't want the entire base missing because your soil is going to fall out, obviously, but you certainly want more than one drainage hole. For me, I'm looking roughly for about 20, maybe 30% of the base being open to drainage. That kind of feels reasonable to me. And I am looking for it spaced out across the base of the pot as well. That's to me a good quality pot, whether it's plastic or terracotta or whatever. It's not from textbook, that's just from trial and error from me growing plants for 8 good years and really trying to understand the right tools for my toolbox, I guess. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going and drilling every pot as soon as I get one, but when I have had problems with plants over the years and I know my watering is okay, then it's usually been almost one of a few small setups. Either there's a single hole in the base and that's clogged by dirt or debris or rocks or whatever it is, so the water can barely move through it. Or the holes are so big, maybe there's a tear in the bottom or it's ceramic and it's broken and everything's just falling out basically, and it's too fast drainage. Or sometimes you do find pots where they're meant to have holes, but you don't check properly. And then there's like this light plastic film over the top there, and that blocks what should be a bigger hole into a smaller one. So just double check that when you are buying plastic pots, because that thin film can cover some of the holes without you even knowing, and that restricts the water flow out as well. So for me, when I was looking at this greenhouse and nothing was working, I took all of the soil out, I grabbed it and I had a look at the pot. And I can tell you right now, the drainage was a huge problem for me. So water would move through this thing all the way down to the bottom and just sit there. And because the soil was already moisture holding, moisture friendly, moisture retentive, whatever you want to call it, the bottom of this thing, the bottom of this greenhouse unit was just permanently damp and too damp, which is not healthy for plant roots at all. And if you're a fungus gnat, it's a perfect, cozy little breeding oasis almost, right? It was so frustrating for me to see that. And I was so frustrated in myself, actually, I must admit. Because I know that when you're growing plants in pots, you need everything to work together, right? You need the soil, the watering, and the drainage to work together. They're not separate conversations. You shouldn't just do one and not look at the others. You can tweak your soil mix, of course, and you can change your watering schedule all you like. But if the water doesn't have proper drainage, if it doesn't have a proper exit, nothing is going to help your plant survive, because the roots are just going to drown in like soil slop, basically. So when it came to the greenhouse, the holes were tiny, were partially clogged with soil, and the holes were just in the wrong place. So technically this pot had drainage, but functionally it didn't have drainage at all. It acted like it had no drainage at all. And that was obviously a huge problem. So to fix it, I grabbed a soldering iron. You can buy soldering irons quite cheap across Amazon. This is one that plugs in. They heat up a lot, so just be really careful when handling it. And because this is a plastic little mini greenhouse pot, I basically put the soldering iron through the plastic and made the holes that were existing there bigger so water could flow out easily. And I added extra. I literally doubled or even tripled the holes from memory, and I put even more in because I want the water to flow out evenly. Not too much, not too little, just naturally where it collects in the pot, I want it to drain out through. So the soil can still hold as much moisture as it needs, but all the excess can now flow through all the drainage holes and keep the soil still aerated and flowing, and let those roots grow with a bit of oxygen as well as a bit of water. Now, if you don't have plastic, you can just pop holes in it still. Just grab a drill, and my partner does it, but just grab a drill. I think you can grab a little bit of tape to put it where it is, and just go slowly. The goal isn't to fill the whole entire base with more holes, so it's like cheese, Swiss cheese. It's just to make sure that you're adding a couple of extra drainage points or multiple points where the water can naturally flow through. Now, just to flag, if your problem is the opposite and the holes are too big and the soil is falling out, and that does happen sometimes, just grab a piece of mesh. Now you can, what I do is, you know those fruit bags where you buy oranges and they come in this mesh bag? I keep those mesh bags, I don't throw them out, and I cut them up into little squares. Make sure that mesh is quite holy. You don't want it like tight so the water doesn't go anywhere. You still want it quite wide. But anyway, so grab the mesh and just pop it across the top of the pot, inside the pot. So just on top of the hole there. The other thing you can do is if you've got broken ceramic or broken terracotta pots like this, especially the round ones, grab the old broken parts, especially if there's like a little curve in the piece, and then put that curved piece over top of the drainage hole or the drainage holes. And that way the water can still seep through underneath that piece of extra ceramic that's sitting there, but your soil won't flow through directly. You're basically just trying to make sure that it's not such a big hole that everything just falls out, and not such a small hole that it gets clogged too easily. You want something in the middle. So as I said, these pots, they're very cheap from my Bunnings store, and I think they're really beautifully made, and they're clear so I can see the roots and I can see everything happening. So I really do love these pots as well from my Bunnings store, from my local big box store. While we're here, there is one more tip I want to help you with as well. If you're someone like me and you use an outer pot with no drainage at the bottom and an inner pot with drainage like that, and you just pop one pot, so your plant will be sitting in that, then sometimes the drainage holes on your inner pot will sit directly down on the base, and that just makes the problem viable again. You're covering the base of the pot where the drainage and the water should flow out. So a tip here is to grab some kind of pebbles or stones, or maybe, pumice or perlite or lacquer, not liquor, not the stuff you drink, for all my US friends who think I keep saying that, lecker, those clay pebbles, those clay balls, and put something like that between the base of the inner pot and the base of the outer pot. So you should have 1 to 2 centimeters, so what's that, about half an inch, maybe an inch of pebbles between the top and the bottom pot. And that way the water can still flow through the drainage of your inner pot and sit within those pebbles. So it's a little bit like a safety net for your water, so you don't, your pot isn't resting against something flat and blocking all of the drainage. Honestly, I do that with a lot of plants, especially if I can't reach them or if they're a little bit out the back. It just gives me a little bit of a safety net when I'm watering my plants. So when it came to this greenhouse, once I changed the drainage, I cleaned out the holes, I unblocked everything, I made the smaller holes bigger, plus I added extra holes, all of that. All I really did was change the structure of the base of this mini greenhouse, and I didn't change anything else. And within 2 weeks, those fungus gnats were gone, and I was able to start actually growing things like these things here. Now, don't get me wrong, those fungus gnats don't stop overnight because you need to get rid of the eggs in the soil as well as the flies flying around, the adults and the eggs. So it was gradual, but there was fewer and fewer, I noticed, until it stopped appearing in about 2 weeks, because that's the cycle of a fungus gnat, really. So I was able to get rid of the gnats just by adjusting the pot itself. And as I said, I did not change the watering schedule again. I definitely didn't change the soil mix again. I had done that once. I kind of knew what I was doing, even though it was a new test for me with food. I just fixed the exit points and the pot drainage. And as you can see, I've got food growing here. So it looks a bit struggly, but this is actually the top of some garlic that I'm growing because I'm still trying to grow my own food. But it was after that whole experiment that I still kept testing and trialing, because that's what plant care really is. You've got to find what works for you in your house, in your conditions, in your temperatures, with the plants that you love. It's all about you and your place. So look, the biggest lesson here, I'm not trying to tell you to go and like attack every pot with a drill and whatever you need to do. The whole point of plant care is that it's a system, it's an ecosystem. Whether you're growing plants inside or outside, you need that soil, the watering, and the pot and the drainage and the plant to all make sense and to all work together. And honestly, the toolbox, I believe, really do matter. It's not that you have to spend thousands on different tools, but you do want to get tools that are good quality and last over time, like the right pots with the right drainage, like these plastic ones that I absolutely love. And look, I have spent a while trying to, a good 8 years trying to figure out the right tools. So just check out the show notes if you want to have a look at that. So before you repot everything and change your entire watering routine, just do me a favor. If the plant isn't growing so well, flip the pot over or lift it up and just have a look at the base of your pot and make sure that drainage is there helping you grow that plant, because you might save yourself 3 rounds of dead plants and buying more and more plants until you actually figure out how your ecosystem, your pot and your plant and the soil and the watering all works together. And I promise you, if you do that, you will definitely avoid turning your house into a fungus gnat nursery or growing grounds. Anyway, now, if there's one more thing, if watering still feels a little bit unpredictable after me talking in this whole video, I'm going to leave you with this next video, because I break down exactly how I water in a normal home setup, in a regular home setup, without overcomplicating how you do watering. So I'm going to leave you with this video next. Have a great week full of leaves, love and laughter. As always, enjoy time in your garden, and I will see you in the next video.